35 drivers. 6 weeks. If you want to make it to the Supercup, you have to survive this gauntlet. This is the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup Contender Series. Five rounds of racing are done. We head into our final event here in the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup Contender Series. And its venue, well, it's the home of German auto racing. We head to the Nürburgring, the GP layout to be exact. My name is Connery Medic. I'm joined by Joshua Lee, of course, as I have been throughout the season, as we start to have a bit of a better idea about which drivers are going to be heading into the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup for next season and which drivers are going to be left by the wayside. A lot of pressure on this event in particular, Josh.
And it's a lot of pressure for the drivers who are either on the cut line or under the cut line. Obviously, we're only taking the top 15 out of the 30 some odd drivers that we had coming into this 6-round campaign. There's a couple of drivers who are already safe. They have zero pressure coming into the Nürburgring. They might not even show up today. They're locked into the Super Cup. They have nothing to go for today. There are drivers who are above the cut line who just need some solid points to get through into the Super Cup. Then you have the drivers who are on the cut line or below that need a great day here from virtual Germany to be able to get into the Super Cup. And because we're only taking 15 names, there's maybe about 18 to 20 names trying to go for a spot. It is going to be huge tonight in the Nürburgring.
It absolutely is, and of course, that's where our main amount of focus is going to be directed in and around that top 15 cut line. Multiple drivers are just a handful of points away from either securing their spot in the main championship next season or just having to wait at least until next year to go through another qualifying series to be able to qualify for the Super Cup. Here's the overall format of the situation, though. In this series, you have 35 drivers. We have the bottom 20 drivers from last year's Porsche Heuer Esports Super Cup. We have the top 15 finishers from the 2021 qualifying series. And this is where we are today in the Contender Series. And of course, the top 15 in points from this series go into the 2022 Porsche Heuer Esports Super Cup, of course, starting in February next year. That's one thing I can reveal, Josh. And, well, not a lot of time for these drivers to prepare. Here's the overall points as they are for the moment. You can see, yes, Peter Berryman is leading the championship by 11 points over David Williams and Kenton Violate. But the main focus is around that top 15. Sam Keitert getting in just above the cut line if the season had ended last week. But of course, we still have this one event to go, 2 races to be exact, and that exact configuration around the cut line can very much be turned on its head.
Yeah, and the battle for the cut line is going to be the thing that we're going to be watching all day today because it's only a 5-point gap in between Keitert and Sedgwick. So it's anybody's guess at who the driver that makes it in to that top 15 out of those two is going to be. If Keitert has a bad day here at the Nürburgring, Sedgwick needs to be on his game to get back above that cut line.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And, well, this is such a crucial race for all of those drivers involved. Of course, that Nürburgring, very tricky track at the best of times. We're not using the Nordschleife for this one. We're using the GP layout instead. And of course, to be exact, we are using the GP layout that has the wider chicane at the end of the lap. So not the Grand Prix chicane that you're used to seeing in Formula One racing. It's the wider chicane that you're used to seeing in some other, in particular, endurance series, especially those that then head on to the Nordschleife, like in the Nürburgring 24 Hours or the VLN. But for now, qualifying has just started here, Joshua. 3 laps, 12 minutes total for these drivers to set those 3 fast laps. And, well, for those drivers on the cut line, of course, this is going to be a very crucial qualifying session as well to gain that track position heading into the first sprint race.
We've seen how big that track position going into the sprint race has been this season. We haven't seen a lot of drivers fight from maybe 6th on back and then go up to win the sprint race. Usually our sprint race winners come from that front row or a couple of rows back. You're usually top 5. If you qualify into the top 5, you have an almost guaranteed chance of being at the front of the sprint race, of course, assuming that you don't get into any big wrecks or anything like that. But qualifying up front in the sprint race usually nets you a good amount of points in the sprint race. So the drivers who are underneath that cut line or want a little bit more insurance on the cut line going into the feature need to have a good qualifying effort here to be able to walk away with a good finish in the sprint.
They absolutely do. And, well, we'll keep track of those drivers in and around the cut line. Keita and Cedric have already mentioned. You got Bixrud that's also in danger as well of not qualifying. Zelensky, of course, he had a fantastic day last week to be able to promote him inside the cut line, but still not a complete certainty for the Americans. Same with Brian Lockwood, who's just a couple of further points ahead as well at this stage. So lots of nerves going on out there. I would have thought for a good handful of drivers that don't know at this stage whether they'll be in or out of the Super Cup for next season. Drivers sizing themselves up then at the end of their warm-up laps to go and set a fast one here. Of course, 3 opportunities, 3 timed laps to be able to set to get your starting grid position for the sprint race. But sometimes it does take around about 2 laps at some tracks to be able to get the car in the right state.
Yeah, they usually take 1 warm-up lap, which is, of course, the out lap from them coming out of the pit lane. And then usually what normally would be a first flying lap, they sort of back it down a little bit towards the middle portion of the sector and warm up those tires a little bit more, just making sure that their car is in perfect working order and that they can go out there and make a good run for the pole, because it is so crucial. We always talk about qualifying in these Porsches is so crucial because of that sprint race. Obviously, we're going to talk about the invert of the top 8 going into the feature and how important that is, but this is the first start of good points coming out of today, and that is qualifying. It is immensely important. So we take a look at the 22 of Jordan Caruso trying to set down a good lap. It looks like he might be on a flyer here. We'll have to see if he ends up going with it or going with another warm-up lap.
Jordan Caruso, the driver of the Altus Esports car from Traralgon. I will pronounce that correctly at some point. Some Australians probably cringed just as I said that there. But from Australia, Caruso, of course, has had a handful of pretty good results over the course of this season. Of course, sprint race, so the first race of the season, he got himself a 3rd place. Of course, in the main race last time out at Long Beach, 8th place, solid top 10 finish for Caruso. But the rest of the season has been a little... well, not as clean as those races were. So this is why he's on the outside of the cut line at the moment. A stellar day here today, though. He might just have a chance at getting himself into the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup for the 2022 season. So across the line he comes then. Of course, that was his first timed lap, onto his 2nd timed lap now, and he draws that car to a stop. Not happy with his efforts. He'll take the tow back to pit lane. He'll get another out lap and another fast lap before this session is done, though.
We get a look at Sam Keitzert, who is getting ready to go on to a flying lap as well. Caruso with a good time, 153.158. We'll see how that holds up. Alexander Volters, Jovagard Gotterstad, Roger Christiansen also up there. Dino Lombardi, we've seen a lot of good efforts from him. Looks like he just took his warm-up lap about 8 seconds off of the pace. And look at Jack Sedgwick. He's going on to a flying lap now. Talk about a driver who needs a good qualifying effort. It is Jack Sedgwick, who sits 16th in the points, 5 below the cut line. He needs something good today. And a driver looking for a little bit more of a good running here is Peter Behrman. Not the best luck when it comes to the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup Contender Series. Obviously leading the points, but definitely doesn't have the results on the podium that I think he was looking for or expecting this season in the Apex Racing Team outfit.
A handful of podiums, 2 in main racing, 1 in the sprint race a little bit earlier on in the season when we went to Road Atlanta. But yeah, apart from that, you know, the couple of mixed results here and there, but it's the staying power throughout the season that's going to be the most crucial thing. Of course, there's not really much of a fight, quote unquote, for the top couple positions in this particular series because of all of that focus around the top 15. You don't get any special prizes for finishing any further up the starting grid, which is why you see some drivers deciding to call it quits, knowing that they're mathematically secure and not taking part here today. But here's the number 83 VRS Coanda Sim Sports machine here coming through the final corner. That is Bobby Zelensky. Of course, I already mentioned, Josh, that he had a great time out at Long Beach, avoided most of the issues over the course of that race. He's still not entirely safe, though, at the moment, as far as that cut line is concerned.
He is not, and he is close to it, but still above it, which is obviously you want to be above the cut line versus below the cut line coming into the final round, but he's not safe, which I think is something that he's going to be thinking about all day long. Good points in the sprint, especially if Sam Keitzer or Jack Sedgwick have a bit of issues going into the sprint race. We could see him really bump his way up the order when it comes to the points, but he's going to be thinking about that the entire sprint, which it's going to be a lot of pressure on Bobby Zelensky, but we know Bobby Zelensky competing in multiple iRacing World Championships over his career. He is great at handling that pressure. We've seen him in the Championship 4 of the NASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series plenty of times before. If anybody knows how to handle pressure, it is Bobby Zelensky.
There is Dino Lombardi getting himself his laps done. He's solidly within the cut line, P number 9. In terms of championship at the moment. So, of course, still taking part in this final race as well, just to make sure that that position is entirely secure at the end here. And we'll get those final results totaled up as fast as possible at the very end of the race to let you know who's in and who is out. Of course, that's all depending on post-race reviews as well. So it's not entirely final, but just giving you forewarning as we ride on board with the Vodafone on board with Dino Lombardi as he heads his way up the Michael Schumacher S. is right in the middle of the lap here of the GP circuit of the Nürburgring. Fantastic circuit. Of course, this GP layout in particular, built in 1984, has hosted many a German Grand Prix and, of course, European Grand Prix as well. Of course, not so much in recent times, but hopefully we do see a return of it to many motorsports calendars across the world.
And remember back to the beginning of this season, Connery, Dino Lombardi had some amazing finishes. He won the first feature race of the season, then went to Barcelona, was able to get second place in the feature there. He's really always been in the conversation, but since then has fallen off a little bit. He comes into this race 10th in points. Yes, he is a good amount good to the cut line, about 60 points good to the cut line, but it didn't look like he was happy with that lap. He backs it out. He's currently in P13. It's just been a little bit lackluster from Dino Lombardi since those first 2 rounds, and hopefully he can rekindle a bit of that same flame and have a good end to the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup Contender Series season here in the Nürburgring.
Roger Christiansen we're seeing come to a stop out there on circuit for Christiansen. Of course, he's been in the wars somewhat so far this season, down in P30 in terms of points, has really languished towards the very bottom of the order here in this one. It would require an absolutely crazy performance from him today to be able to get himself inside of that cut line. It would require a little bit of help from above as well with drivers having issues. But as we head towards the end of this qualifying session now, we can ride on board with the Vodafone on board with Brian Lockwood as he negotiates one of his final laps here. And, he's going to bring it to a close as well on the way down in towards turn number 1, not feeling like he can improve on his lap time there. Lockwood down in P17 to start, which is very much not ideal from a competitor who is just above the cut line.
Talking about drivers who are slightly below that cut line, Oscar Bixrud, who qualifies in 12th, a pretty good run, but could have used a little bit more speed in that Porsche. We get a look at Kamil Grabowski as he tries to navigate himself through the first sector here at the Nürburgring. Very difficult, very technical. Watch those curbs. You don't want to get caught out by them. They're really high curbs here at the Nürburgring. They hike those cars up. So you need to make sure you're not getting on them too much to not spin that car around. We ride on board in the Vodafone on board with the 95, navigating himself through Ford Curve, and he'll go down towards Dunlop now. We'll see what Grabowski can do, trying to improve on a P14 currently on the board with a 153.416.
Brings it into turn number 8 as we jump towards Josh Thompson now in the number 51 Williams Esports machine. Josh Thompson, again, one of those drivers that you just really can't underestimate in these sorts of situations. Of course, has previously competed in the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup, but he seems to be a bit of a trouble magnet, is what I'm saying. The pace is certainly there for Josh Thompson, but sometimes he just gets himself involved in a couple of issues that he perhaps should not.
Yeah, it looks like right now everybody going out for a sighting lap, making sure that their cars are good, that they know where their braking zones are, and that they are ready to go for the sprint race. And with 40 seconds left in qualifying, Connery, looks like no more times are going to be being set. So very interesting to see only 21 drivers we have starting this race, which is interesting as well. But a lot of the drivers who needed good days are closer to the mid-pack, except for Bobby Zelensky. Looks like he qualifies the best out of the drivers who are close to that cut line. So he qualifies P6. Sam Keitzer, not the effort he wanted, P15. Jack Sedgwick, who he's racing for that cut line, is right behind him, P16. Brian Lockwood, who comes in close to that cut line, P13, will start P17. It's a lot of drivers close to that cut line that did not have the best effort in qualifying.
Yeah, we will recap the grid in just a couple of moments' time as the qualifying session has now brought itself to a close here at the Nürburgring. That was our final qualifying session for the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup Contender Series and the final official qualifying session for the old Porsche 991 variant Cup car as well. Here's the starting grid for the sprint race then. Peter Berryman puts the Apex Racing Porsche on pole position with Anshan Guven, who's racing for a slot in the championship. He's on the outside of row number 1. Julian Sonin and Moreno Soricha will bring things down to P4 on the starting grid today, with Quentin Violate and Bobby Zelensky lining up 5th and 6th respectively. Cycling further back, you've got David Williams in P7 with Jordan Caruso starting in 8th place, with Alessandro Bico and Alexander Walters bringing things down to the top 10 cars. Elvis Rankin starts 11th with Oscar Biscuit in P12 here today for the sprint race. Dino Lombardi will start in 13th with Kamil Grabowski in 15th, with Sam Keatit in 15th place, and of course Jack Sedgwick in 16th. We've got Brian Lockwood starting in 17th. He's wanting to make some forward progress in this race. Same with Josh Thompson in P18. Joe Goddestad in P19 with Roger Christiansen in P20. The driver that's starting all the way to the back here today, it is number 17 of Matti Sippler that has to do things from the last diverse challenge point of view. Drivers, of course, will have just under a minute to get themselves ready and onto the starting grid here, Joshua. It's going to be a mad run down towards turn number 1. Such a tight corner for a first corner.
Oh, definitely. Turn number 1 at the Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit is always exciting, but got to remember, we're not going through the arena section. We're basically cutting that off, so we're going very, very tight first chicane at the Castrol S. So we're going to see a lot of drivers have to navigate that. We saw the drama in the first lap at Long Beach 1 week ago. Hopefully, we see a little bit more of the same energy. We saw some great racing at Long Beach, maybe minus the carnage at turn 1.
Of course, pole position starts on the outside here at the Nürburgring as well, which is a disadvantage heading in towards turn number 1 for the first time. And it looks like everyone's gotten themselves ready on the starting grid for the final sprint race of the season in the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup Contender Series. We are sprint race racing here at the Nürburgring. Peter Berryman's gotten away well. He covers off to the inside of turn number 1 for the start, but there's been contact for the race lead. There's Peter Berryman's around as we launch the win mid-pack, trying to negotiate all of this through turn number 1 here. Big moment at the very front of the field as cars get tagged around and make contact. There's yet more instance that I'm seeing as well. Big spin in the background. I see one of the Racecraft Esports cars around in the early stages. That was Sam Keitzer. That's crucial in terms of him staying in the cut line.
Look at the driver up front, though, Connery. Bobby Zelensky, what a start for the 83 machine. He needed a good finish here in the sprint. Needs a good finish in the feature as well to give himself more of a buffer towards that cut line. But Bobby Zelensky is showing why he belongs in the Porsche Heuer Esports Super Cup and runs up front. And they're still battling in the midfield. Josh Thompson with an issue, falling back. He gets a slowdown going through the first sector. He's going to fall all the way to 16th, now battling with Christiansen.
He is heading their way through up towards the Michael Schumacher S. Now here comes David Williams on the inside of Elvis Rankin, wheel to wheel through the S's section. Doesn't usually work out as good as that. Elvis Rankin is able to keep himself ahead for now. Williams committing down the inside now in towards turn number 11. just almost making contact there, as they'll continue the fight through the pit curve at turn number 12, and then down the hill towards the Hatzenbogen, excuse me, the Advanbogen, whatever you want to call it, here as they head up the hill in towards the NGK chicane then, as Oscar Biscuit and Brian Lockwood. Oh, Lockwood looking to the inside. The chicane's not usually a place, at least in this configuration, where you want to try and look your way past. But on the end of the first lap then, it is Zelensky that leads from Sarica, from Caruso, from Pico, from Violati. That's your top 5.
And what a start. And we're going to take a look at the Vodafone replay of that turn 1 incident. Berryman goes immediately to cover off second place. It tries to cover off the number 53. Where's the contact? There it is. Just the slightest bit of contact sends Berryman off, sends Ian Sean Guvin with him. Those are the 2 drivers involved. It looks like Peter Berryman in the pit lane with damage. That is going to be the end of the race for the number 50 from first to the pits. And there's another spin from Sam Keitzer. He was the one that got spun in the middle of the pack, Connery. Not what he needed for the cut line. Where is Jack Sedgwick currently running on the racetrack? We need to watch him now because he has an opportunity to get above the cut line. And right now, I believe they're tied for that cut line.
Possibly. We'll have to check our calculations, of course, as you see these guys head down into the hairpin right in the middle of the lap. They're side by side coming down into the braking zone once again here. Number 91, that is going to be Elvis Rankin, continuing to try and scrap it out with the Quanda machine of David Williams. Of course, Oscar Biscuit in the Quanda Junior car is behind this one. So opponents ahead and behind here for Elvis Rankin in the Apex Racing Porsche as they head towards the final sector of the lap once again here in this one. 7 laps of racing here in the sprint race. We'll double that to 14 laps of racing when it comes to the feature event. Looks like someone's got a slowdown though. Is that Pico? Yes, it is. The number 77 Porsche has a slowdown penalty coming towards the end of this lap, and look at how many positions he's losing.
That is not what Alessandro Bico wanted. He loses a spot, but look who's right behind him now. Oscar Bixrud, another one of those cut line drivers who needs as many positions as he possibly can get. They're both following the number 91 Apex Racing Team outfit of Elvis Rankin. Down the front straightaway, you can see the line starting to develop. One driver moves out of line. That's Jack Sedgwick looking for more spots, or it looks like he's going to actually lose one to Brian Lockwood on the outside. I did the calculations, and if Jack Sedgwick is in 13th here, Connery, Sam Keitzer is in 17th. Sedgwick going to go for P12 right now up the inside of Lockwood. Sedgwick does have the 15th spot over Keitzer and contact in the back.
Yeah, that was with Cedric as well. As we were looking ahead to I was watching Bico cycle around, it was a wheel-to-wheel battle with Lockwood and Cedric, and it seems like Cedric's come off the worst there. I think Lockwood washed up in the middle of the corner, and there's only one trajectory he was going to go in, and that was directly into the path for Cedric. Cedric had nothing to do with it.
And now that's going to move Cedric even closer to Keitzer. And the way the points work, where they were before, if Cedric stayed P13 and Keitzer stayed P17, that would move Jack Sedgwick up and into the cut line by only about 2 points, but it would move him up there. Remember, that gap is only 5. The gap in points between 13th and 17th is 7. By the way, points aren't delivered, so it would have been the moment that Jack Sedgwick needed to get above that cut line. So we have a battle for second starting to develop between Sirica and Caruso, but they're all behind Bobby Zelensky right now.
Caruso needing 2 very, very good results here today to get him above the cut line, but even that may not be enough given the given a particular set of circumstances further down the field with the other drivers that are on the other cut line as well. So Caruso, he has one task on his mind right now, is just get as far up the podium as is humanly possible and wait to see how things work out with regards to the points a little bit later on here today. But out of the final corner for the 3rd time onto lap number 4. Caruso not getting himself a good enough run out of the final corner to be able to make this sort of move happen into turn number 1 on this particular lap, but he is edging closer and closer. Sarica has to be looking in his wing mirrors now to see where that's maybe not, maybe looking in his wing mirrors a bit too much because he overcommitted to turn number 1.
still battling for second place. You can see how much Caruso wants that spot. Remember, both of these drivers, Jordan Caruso is outside of the cut line currently. Moreno Soricha just fighting for a good finish. He's pretty much locked in to the Super Cup in 2022. Just looking to have a good day here at the Nürburgring. Caruso is racing to get above that cut line. And with Oscar Bixrud running a little bit further down in P12, Sedgwick and Keitzert as well running 15th and 17th, this could be a great opportunity for Jordan Caruso to walk away with some good sprint race points and then go into the feature looking to maximize the amount of points there as well. He has an opportunity to get above that cut line, but as we run, Connery, it was looking like more of a Hail Mary pass when we began this race. Now it's starting to look like it's more possible for the 22.
It indeed is. Third place at the moment in this race. As we look at our Vodafone replay of a view a little bit further back through the field. That's easily done off the top of the Michael Schumacher S's there, as the number 79 has to take the trip through the grass. That was Oscar Bixrud that completely messed up the top of the Michael Schumacher S's and loses that position.
And you can see the spread out that's starting to happen up at the front. Everybody's starting to spread, and we usually see this towards the middle portion of the sprint race. We went halfway done with the sprint race really on this lap. Now we're going to go to 3 laps to go in the sprint. Very quick sprint race here from the Nürburgring, going by very quickly, even with about 2 minutes per lap. And it is going to be a very quick run to the finish as Zelensky continues to lead the way.
We can get a couple of words with Peter Berryman, who had a very unfortunate start to this race. Peter, just talk me through it.
Caught in the background, so yeah, hitting the back going into T1, not much I could do there. Little bit of a gap between the cars, so I mean that's internet racing, bit of netcode can happen sometimes, but at the same time I don't really understand why he squeezed so hard on the inside of the track there, so yeah, took me out, and at the end of the day it only hurts himself. I'm locked in at this stage, so yeah, not much else to say other than that.
What was the overall attitude coming into this race, knowing that you're, well, mathematically secure as far as getting yourself your slot into next season? What was the overall goal?
So quite close to the overall championship. You know, a little bit of a bonus, a bit of a boost, I guess, to win that. So coming into this, the goal was to try and win the overall, and I got pole position, had a strong car, so I was feeling pretty good that I could have won the sprint race and probably hunted that down and done the job, but yeah, wasn't to be, unfortunately.
We've got, of course, the battle for P2 going on right now between Soricha and Caruso. Who's your money on?
I don't care, honestly. I'm just hoping the best for Elvis. Hopefully he can get the job done here. He's close to the transfer spot for the reverse grid, so yeah, fingers crossed he can get the points he needs.
All right, we'll keep track of his progress, but thank you very much, Peter, for joining us here in the commentary booth, and best of luck in your future events.
Cheers, man.
There we go. That's Peter Berryman. Of course, pole position here in this one, but unfortunately got into a little bit of a tangle heading down in towards Cinderborn with Ayanchan Guven, who's fallen all the way down to P20 at the moment. That's crucial for Guven, considering he was trying to fight for the transfer spot into next season.
This battle for second is still developing its way through. Peter Berryman doesn't care who's going to get this second spot, but I'm putting my money on Jordan Caruso. I think he's going to keep putting this pressure on because we've seen it all season from Caruso. Hasn't gotten the results that I think he was looking for. Obviously below the cut line, so definitely not what he was expecting either. Having a fight above that cut line here, I'm thinking he's going to get a little bit more aggressive, but he needs to get a little bit closer. He's not close enough to make a move just yet, unless he's willing to get so aggressive that it might lead to an incident between himself and Siricha.
It could well be, and it could catch another couple of casualties if that happens as well, with how close those other cars are following in behind. But we've got 2 to go here at the Nürburgring for the sprint race on the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup Contender Series. We also have a battle further down the field for P13 as well, involving one of those close to the cut line drivers, Brian Lockwood, maintaining his position ahead of Matti Sippola at the moment. Sippola 12th in the championship at the moment, so not entirely secure as far as the cut line is concerned. You want to gain a couple more positions to be able to make sure you're safe heading into the feature race. But for the moment, it's well, Lockwood, that's in the more pressure-filled situation, you have to argue here, in the number 43 Racecraft Esports car. Maintaining a position as Lockwood has gained a good couple of spots since the start as well. That's the ideal situation for him. Sippler is starting to close in on the way up in towards NGK, and here comes Sippler towards the inside. Can't get it done into there, though. Not brave enough to go for a lunge into there. That's more of a last lap thing than a 2-to-go thing.
That battle for 13th could end up being important to the cut line. Of course, it's between Lockwood and Sippler, but look who's right behind him. Sedgwick and Kaiser. Two of the drivers who are fighting for the cut line. If it ends up leading to contact between Lockwood and Sippler, as Sippler takes a peek to the inside, can't get there in time by turn number 1. This could lead to Jack Sedgwick and Sam Keitzert having a little bit more of an issue as Gotterstad goes wide trying to fight his teammate Christiansen. We say in this battle for 13th, not close enough to make any moves for Sippler yet, but he's getting close. Same thing in the battle for second place right now. They're close, just have nowhere to make those moves without getting so aggressive that it could lead to contact on the final lap.
Indeed, and of course with the layout that we are using, it removes some overtaking opportunities, especially the wider chicane at the very end of the lap. You just can't send a late braking move down the inside there, or at least it's less often that you'll see a late breaker moves down the inside there to make a pass on the final lap. But here we go then. We got about half a lap to go for your leaders as they head their way up towards the Michael Schumacher S for the final time in the sprint race. Zelensky still leads from Sirica, from Caruso in that order. We've got Violate and Sonen down to P5 at the moment as we have a look at your race leader from VRS Contender Sim Sports. That is Bobby Zelensky. Fantastic performance here in the sprint race. He's got a comfortable enough buffer back to Sirica, so he doesn't have to worry too much here heading into the final couple of corners of the lap as they climb the hill towards the chicane. Caruso, I don't think, is quite close enough to Sirica to be able to launch one down the inside into here due to the fast nature of this version of the chicane. So at the end of the sprint race, it's the number 83 VRS Coanda Sim Sports Porsche of Bobby Zelensky that takes the sprint race win here at the Nürburgring. A bit of a fist pump. Zelensky gets a whole bunch of points, which really helps him out in terms of that cut line as we see the rest of the field head their way through now. No crucial battles in and amongst these, but we've got our stage set for the feature.
You can see Connery, he's proud of that one. He wanted that one, and he got it. That 83 car had speed all through that sprint race. The contact at the start gave him the exact door that he needed. He swung it open and dominated that sprint.
He really, really did. He seemed like he had not a care in the world at the very front of the field there. Bobby Zelensky wins by 0.4 of a second over Moreno Sirica, with Jordan Caruso with a crucial third-place finish for the 22 driver of the Altus Esports machine. We've got Quentin Violate in P4 with Julian Sonen in P5, the two teammates from RNG Esports P4, P5. We've got Alexander Volters in P6 there with David Williams in P7. Elvis Rankin in P8 with Dino Lombardi finishing 9th, and Alessandro Pico will round out the top 10. He, of course, got himself a slowdown penalty early on in the event, which lost him a good handful of positions. Looking outside the top 10, though, we got Josh Thompson, Oscar Biskrud, Brian Lockwood, Matty Sippler, Jack Sedgwick down to 15th place. Sam Keitet in P16 with Grabowski P17, Golleside in 18th, Christiansen in 19th, and Guven after that turn 1 incident with Peter Berryman in 20th. Peter Berryman, your only retirement here in the sprint race, as Josh, you're standing by with our sprint race winner of Bobby Zelensky.
Yeah, here with Bobby now. And Bobby, first of all, exactly what you needed to do here in the sprint. What was going through your mind with that turn 1 incident between Guven and Berryman and seeing that door open for the race lead on lap 1?
Yeah, I mean, it looked like I was going to be second, which was cool with me. I'm like, dang, I just picked up these good positions. I got a really good jump off the line, which I've been happy to get some good starts the last couple of races. And then Moreno just on cold tires lost it, gave me the lead, and all of a sudden, you know, I'm like, oh, we might have a chance to win our first race this season, or just in general in the Porsche Esports Supercup ladder. So that's great. I'm happy.
And going into the feature race as well, you dominated that sprint since lap number 1. You have speed in the 83. What's your confidence level going into the feature with the invert? You're going to be starting in P8 for the feature.
Yeah, I still need to be a little careful because that was only 25 points, and there's double the points on for this next race. So I'm just going to do my thing. If there's any wrecks, hopefully I avoid them. It'd be amazing if we could get to the lead again and win. My pace felt really good out front. I wasn't stressing at all. I was just kind of taking my time with the car and the clean air, and I feel good about it. I feel good about it for sure.
Thanks for joining us, Bobby. Good luck in the feature race.
Thank you.
Great to hear from Bobby Zelensky Connery. What a run from him in the sprint. Exactly when he needed it as well. He showed up and got the win.
Absolutely. I said it at the end of that race there. He looked like he was just out for a Sunday drive there at the end of the sprint race. Just absolutely no pressure whatsoever from behind. Sricha was more concerned about what was going on behind him, with Caruso bearing down on him on a good couple of laps in the middle of that race. But the context changes somewhat now coming into this main event. More points are on offer. We have that reverse grid of the top 8 from the sprint race as well. It does mean that Elvis Rankin starts on pole position. That's going to be pretty crucial for Elvis as far as his task at launching himself from about P21 at the start of today up inside that cut line. So we'll see how well he does.
Well, I believe, Connery, the last 3 races in the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup Contender Series in the feature, we have had the driver who started on inverse grid pole win the feature. So can we continue that today? Elvis Rankin has had good speed, but like you mentioned, trying to fight to get above that cut line. We know Apex Racing Team has speed in these Porsches. Let's see if Elvis Rankin can get it done. He's going to need to nail that start and hope for no contact from behind like his teammate had in the sprint race.
Of course, nailing the start here at the Nürburgring is so important considering you start on the outside. But for more information on how to get your start here on iRacing, log on to iRacing.com today. We, of course, have we usually have a new membership offer going on. Usually it's around about 40% off your first 3 months on iRacing. And for more information about this series and Porsche esports racing on iRacing in general, and well, potentially how to become a driver, log on to iRacing.com/Supercup today to see current standings and more information regarding the participation in this series. But of course, we're setting up now for the final race, not only of today, but of the season. There's a recap of how everything works here in these events with the sprint race done. We've got qualifying done. That feature race of 14 laps is yet to come here, and it could be a crucial 14 laps for those drivers still close to the cut.
And we double the distance for the feature as well, which means we're going from 7 laps to 14 laps. That is a lot more time to get things done. We saw how much the field spread out in the sprint race. These drivers are going to have double the amount of time to make those moves and climb their way up through the field, which for a couple of drivers looking for good points, they need to climb their way up through the field.
They really do. So the feature race grid will be set in just a handful of moments' time. Of course, they're going to be based on the results of the sprint race, but with the top 8 cars switched around. Elvis Rankin, the number 91 Apex Racing machine, will start on pole position for this one with David Williams in P2. Alexander Wolters will start in P3 with Julian Sonnen in P4. Kenton Violate in P5 with Jordan Caruso in P6 here today. Moreno Sricha will start 7th, and of course our sprint race winner of Bobby Zelensky will start in 8th place. Dino Lombardi narrowly missing out on reverse grid pole position. He'll start in P number 9 with Alessandro Bico in 10th. And then Josh Thompson, Oscar Bixrud. We got Brian Lockwood and Matty Sipler, Jack Cedric and Sam Keitert. Those names down to P16. We got Grabowski in 17th place, Goddestad in 18th, Christiansen, Guven and Berryman will be the final cars that line up at the very back of the starting grid for the feature event. 14 laps of racing here at the Nürburgring for our final round of the season. And not only is it the final round of this season, it's the final rounds that we'll see in esports competition on iRacing with the Porsche 991 GT3 Cup car. We go to the 992 for the new Super Cup season. So this is a little bit of a send-off for what is the now an obsolete machine. But of course, there's a lot of love for this car in iRacing.
This new 992s provide some amazing racing. I've had the privilege of covering some league racing for the Porsche 992s in the last couple of weeks, and they race really well. So I'm excited for next year's Super Cup to see how these pro-level drivers take to the new cars and really race each other differently than the 991.
More power, more downforce, wider tires. It's going to be absolutely fantastic, that 992. Once we get to see it in esports competition in February in the Porsche Heuer Esports Super Cup. But for the Contender Series, our final race is about to get going at the Nürburgring. We're very thankful you're able to join us for this one, because this might be absolutely brilliant racing here for the final race. Drivers on the cut line. The nerves are at its highest before the green flag here at the Nürburgring. It is a poor start, though, from Elvis Rankin in pole position. He'll be challenged by not only David Williams, he's already through, but Alexander Wolters down the inside at turn number 1 as well. Make sure you can get the car stopped through there, as it's a very, very tight corner to try and negotiate on a first lap. We'll get to see 3 wide for the race lead in the early portions of the event, and Elvis Rankin's been tagged from behind. This is crucial as far as his top 15 is concerned in the points, as there's yet more carnage further back.
Getting turned around, it looked like Quinton Violate for a moment was turned. A couple other drivers getting involved. Sam Keitzert and Jack Sedgwick involved in incidents further back. 2 drivers fighting for the cut line. They go 3 wide again, trying to go up the inside. That's the 69 Williams Esports machine, and Josh Thompson gets turned off. The 51 is into the sand. An unbelievable start to the feature, Connery, and we've still got some cattywampus cars through the mid-pack.
That was the 77 of Alessandro Pico, just getting a huge tank slapper up over the curb there. It was absolutely a chaotic start to this feature event. Here is the state of the cut line right now. It's the 22 of Jordan Caruso that's just about through by a single point at this stage. The number 79 of Oscar Busquets narrowly missing out by a point. The 43 is also in. That's Brian Locke with the 17 is in at this stage as well. That's Matti Sipler doing a fantastic job. But this can all change by the end of 14 laps. As it just has on your screen.
Yeah, it just did. Oscar Bixrud now up and into the transfer spot. I believe Jordan Caruso might have had a slowdown, might have gotten caught up in an incident, something of that nature. I believe he did have a slowdown. He did have a slowdown. Yeah. So the 22 with the slowdown went way down to P14. He makes up 1 spot, now 9 points below the cut line on Oscar Bixrud. But look at the 43 of Lockwood. He is safe by 22 points. The 17 of Matti Sipla as well. How about the 10 of Jack Sedgwick and the 14 of Sam Keitzert? Now both 13 below the cut line. A lot can change here in the feature.
Biting down the pit straight in towards turn number 1. Fantastic stuff in amongst these drivers as Alessandro Pico was trying to hold a couple of cars behind us. We'll see the replay of the start here. Oh, that's just an unfortunate bit of contact for the 91. 3 wide into the arena section for the first time. Certainly is not going to work out. I believe it might have been Alexander Wolters that was in behind, then making that bit of contact, and it just triggered a chain reaction further down through the field as they saw that incident happening ahead of them and got himself involved in their own instance as well.
Here's the issue for the 51. 3 wide moment. Biko inside, just a little touch, and once he gets into that grass, it moves there. And they're all 3 Williams Esports teammates there, Connery. If you want to make contact with any driver, you got to make sure it's not your teammate. That was 3 Williams Esports drivers going 3 wide here at the Nürburgring. I didn't think it would work, and it did not.
Well, hitting 1 of your teammates is bad. Hitting 2 of your teammates, that's not worth thinking about in that situation. So a little bit of infighting with regards to the Williams Esports team here. At this stage, lap number 2 of 14 of the final feature race of the season. There's the state of the cut line once again. The 79 is in, Oscar Biscuit. The 14 is out of Sam Keitzert. As Keitzert, this day could not have gone any worse for him at the moment. He still has an opportunity to get inside the top 15, but it'll require a huge amount of effort and keeping cars behind him as well, because Cedric's trying to squeeze through.
Back up front. Battle with Wolters, Soinen, and here comes Bobby Zelensky. Of course, he started P8 with that invert, and the 83 has already climbed his way up into P4. You can see the drag race down the front straightaways. Williams tries to hold off the sea of drivers behind him. Remember, David Williams won the feature race 1 week ago. As we take a look at a Vodafone replay, bottom of your screen, here is the 3 wide moment with all 3 Williams cars. And there's the contact that sends Thompson off. I don't think they were expecting 3 wide that quickly there, Connery.
Yeah, and to be a fly in the wall in their team communications, of course, we're not, we won't quite get that, of course, but I would imagine that some choice words were shared in amongst all three drivers there. But that will just have to remain a mystery for now. But lap number 3 of 14 right now, Jack Sedgwick is currently tied on points with Sam Keitet in 16th place, but both of them are still 13 points behind Bixrud.
That's Jordan Caruso. That's there in 17th. Connery Keisert's down in P18 right now, 16 below the cut line, starting to look a little bit grim for Sam Keitzer. But Caruso with that slowdown, trying to work his way back up. Elvis Ronkin had a good opportunity to get some good points from this feature. Did not have the best start. We saw the Vodafone replay of him getting turned around in turn number 1. He falls to P12, starting to climb his way back up. But keep taking a look at those points right side of your screen. They will consistently change throughout the feature race tonight. And Soinen and Zelensky continuing to fight for P3, as it looks like we're going to get a Vodafone replay of another incident on the racetrack here, Connery.
Yeah, because Caruso is, had no shortage of awful things happen to him over the course of this one. Of course, that slowdown penalty early on in the event, and he's had a bit of contact as well, which is why he's cycled all the way back into P17 at the moment. You can see the replay on the bottom of your screen, and it was contact he caused as well as he sends the Racecraft Esports car ahead of him out into the runoff inside turn number 1. And that was Sam Keitet as well, who himself is trying to get inside the top 15. So well, it's a bit of a bloodbath for those guys on the cut line, as we'll see moves being made a little bit further up through the field. Julian Sonnen on the defense here. Bobby Zelensky looking to try and get through and up inside the podium.
Zelensky is looking aggressive as well. I think he gained a little bit of confidence with that sprint race, knows he has pace to run up at the front, now is trying to get up into the lead. He's got a little bit more to go up to David Williams, but Volters, Soinen, and Zelensky now all running together. And Dino Lombardi's there as well. What a run for the 13 right now, as he currently runs in P5. He began this race down in P9, up 4 spots. Good run for Dino Lombardi, not enough to, he's above the cut line now, not enough to get him below that cut line, but a great run so far for Dino Lombardi. Hopefully he can hold on to that top 5 and be one of the drivers in the Super Cup.
We've still got a long way to go in this race before we find that out, though. But of course, you can keep track of things on the right-hand side there, matching the car numbers to the names. As you see Zelensky get a poor run through the S's, and now Lombardi's looking around his outside in towards the left-hander here. Respectful room given by both drivers, as the racecraft tends to be pretty good between these two. Lombardi maintaining the inside for the right as they go down the hill. And, well, Zelensky is able to slot himself, or rather keep himself ahead, and keep the attack at bay from Lombardi. There's Bixrud back in P11. He's the driver that is only just in P15 in points at the moment. 11 points is the buffer to the number 10 behind him of Jack Sedgwick. So Bixrud, well, he's quote-unquote safe, but not really all that safe.
He still can fall below that cut line, but what I find interesting here, Connery, look at where Oscar Bixrud is running right now on the track. P11. Look at where the 10 machine is running of Jack Sedgwick. P17. Look at the 22 of Caruso. P15. Look at the 14 machine of Sam Keitzert. P19. We go on the Vodafone onboard with Jack Sedgwick, bottom of your screen. P17. He's got a lot of cars in front of him. He needs to get by them now and get by them quickly if he wants an opportunity to get above that cut line, because Oscar Bixrud is only looking forward right now, trying to gain as many points as he can. And remember, the further you go up the leaderboard, the more points each pass is worth.
Indeed, and obviously Jack Sedgwick also concerned about Caruso a little bit further ahead of him, because Caruso was able to pull off a pass on this previous lap, so he now closes the distance to Bixrud by, 9 points now. So another couple of positions here for Caruso could leave him in with an opportunity of getting himself outside the cut line. But the problem for him comes after he potentially passes Christiansen. There's a bit of a gap to Rankin, and then he's got Bixrud and Grabowski fighting wheel to wheel just even further down the road by a couple of seconds. So it's going to require a lot of effort for Caruso to do this.
We're on board now with Jordan Caruso, who can see the Fox Gaming driver, Jovigard Gotterstad, behind him, and he has the Fox Gaming driver of Roger Christiansen ahead of him as well. as we take a look off the back of the Vodafone onboard of Caruso. Another one of those drivers. He needs to get by drivers incredibly quickly. 14th place for the feature in terms of points earned, Connery. He is looking at about 24 points. He goes up into P13, he's looking at 26. He goes up from there, he's looking at 2 more points and 2 more points. And then he's starting to look at 3 points per pass and then 4 points per pass. You go up to the front, you're looking at 5 points separating first and second place in the results. So the further they go up the field, the more each pass is worth. So they need to make sure that they are running up front. Look at the aggression coming out from Bobby Zelensky trying to hold off Dino Lombardi, and contact. They slam doors.
And now it's drawn Alessandro Bico into the fight as he looks to try and wheel it around the outside at turn 2 through the arena section. Lombardi holding on for dear life on that inside there. It's going to be a big ask, and he's just about kept himself ahead of Bico in this situation, but it ruins both of their lines coming through turn 4, which means Violate can get the runner speed in towards turn 5 now, but it doesn't look like he's going to try and capitalize on that one and head down the inside of that green-fronted Williams Esports car of Alessandro Bico. But yeah, chaotic a little bit inside of these, inside of this battle for P4. A little bit chaotic behind it, and amongst where Caruso and Rankin and a couple of other drivers are, with Cedric a little bit further back as well. No matter where you look on the racetrack, there's action to be seen, as the gap now on the cut line between Bixrud and Caruso is now at 7 points.
Bixrud is kind of stalled in P11. Of course, it gets difficult to make passes as the further you go up the field. Obviously, you're going to be facing faster cars, but the 95 of Kamil Grabowski able to hold him off to a gap of about 4 tenths right now, about 2 tenths right now, excuse me. But look at Jordan Caruso. He's getting spots made on the track. He's about to get up to Elvis Rankin. He has a little bit of a gap now, so Bixrud needs to take this opportunity to get by as many drivers in front of him as he possibly can, because that gap at the cut line of 7 points, if Caruso keeps going on the mission that he is right now, that 7 points is going to turn into 4, going to turn into none, going to turn into Bixrud under the cut line.
The problem with Caruso, though, is he's about 1.7 behind seconds behind Elvis Rankin in P12, so there's a little bit of clear air for now. Is running on board with Ayanchan Guven, who's in, 18th place in terms of points at the moment, currently in 9th place out there on circuit, and I think if you do the mathematics, he might have all the positions required to be able to get close to that cut line right ahead of him.
And you can see David Williams top left of the camera shot as Ayanchan Guven gets aggressive. What a move on Kamil Grabowski as he goes for it, can't make it work. He goes for the crossover and contact with a 69.
They keep going, though. They keep it wheel to wheel in towards turn number 5. There's another squeeze and another bit of contact. They're leaning on each other like stock cars coming through the middle of the lap here, as it seems to be that Grabowski's going to try and capitalize on all of this one, going around the outside. And that's fantastic recovery there from Grabowski as Guven and Saric made contact multiple times.
Look at what this has done, Connery. The driver in the back end, you can see that purple and white 79 of Oscar Bixrud as the 69 gets turned. Off the track goes Sarica. That's another spot for Bixrud. He goes up into the top 10. Multiple cars miss the spun. Number 69, Williams Esports machine in the middle of the track. But Bixrud now gets more positions. But look at Jordan Caruso. He's now 1 spot behind Bixrud. 5 points good to the cut line now is Bixrud in the 79.
Bixrud now has to be super concerned about Jordan Caruso and his, the potential pace. Of course, he's got about 2 seconds to catch up before he can challenge Bixrud for that P10 at the moment. So maybe it's a little bit of a calmer portion of the race. But if Caruso makes inroads here towards Bixrud might be in an actual direct fight on track for the slot in the season. This is crazy.
This is going to come down to the final lap here. Look at the move to the inside. Dino Lombardi goes for 4th on Zelensky. Close to contact, but they keep it clean. And Dino Lombardi's up in a P4. Move the 83 back into P5. Now, that does move Zelensky onto our live points graphic on the right side of your screen. But 53 good to the cut line. Unless he completely wrecks out of this race and earns 0 points, he is completely good to the cut line. We don't need to focus on him. We're focusing on Bixrud and Sedgwick, the 79 and the 10, who currently both sit on the cut line, now 4 points separated from each other as Sedgwick, Caruso, and Bixrud all run 11th, 12th, and 13th on the course.
Yeah, 4 points back to Sedgwick, 5 points back to Caruso. This is getting too close for comfort as far as the cut line's concerned. There's the contact through the middle of Dunlop that then collected an Apex car involved in that one. Saricha pointing in the wrong direction. Everyone trying to scatter behind, trying to pick a lane through all of that one. Here's the view from behind as well. Oh, Jesus. The number 22 narrowly avoided that one, and that was Jordan Caruso.
If he would have gotten caught up in that one, that would have been heartbreak for Caruso as he is so close to the cut line right now. Any position Caruso can get and Bixrud can get is going to help them, and that is exactly what happened with that incident with Saricha. They both gained 1 spot, both gained points on the racetrack.
Yeah, indeed, they do. Having a little bit of a look further up the field, though, this is the train going on right now for P number 4 out there on circuit. Lombardi leads this grouping around for the moment. You got Zelensky there as well. You've got Quentin Violate locking onto the back of him right now as we'll just go on board with the Vodafone on board and have a listen on board with Alessandro Pico. That's one of the final times where we'll get to listen to the engine notes that this Porsche 911 991 GT3 Cup car makes before we head to the 992 in the new season. It's a sound that you'll miss, but we very much enjoy the notes of the 992 as well. So you've got that to look forward to. We've got 6 laps to go in this season. The cut line battle as close as ever. Bixrud still narrowly in by 4 points, but that can change on its head. Not only due to positions changing out there on circuit, Joshua, it's also due to the fact that we have to factor in drop weeks right now. Currently, those live points do factor in the drop weeks, which is why you potentially might see a couple of nonsensical jumps up and down the order from a couple of cars. That's just it trying to work it out with regards to drops.
Yeah, and those drop weeks have been accumulated all throughout the season, and now we're seeing them come into play with those live points. And as everybody runs together, 10th, 11th, and 12th run close together on the racetrack right now as we can see the battle at the front. And here's the battle further back. Jordan Caruso in the middle of nowhere right now as Bixrud and Sedgwick run in front of him and behind him. You can see the 79 is the next car in front of Jordan Caruso. If he's able to get by him, that is going to change a lot on the cut line. And you can see who else is in front of the 79 at Bixrud, Grabowski and Guvin. He has an opportunity to make multiple passes here.
Yeah, Sedgwick is following in the tire tracks of Caruso as well. So this might get very, very complicated all of a sudden as we look towards the very front of the field once again, as it's the number 77 of Alessandro Pico looking around the outside of Bobby Zelensky, our sprint race winner. Doesn't have the momentum here down into the Dunlop curve. He might still have an opening on the inside, but that gets covered off by Alessandro Pico. Violate taking ahead, taking more of a double apex through there. Some other drivers, though, looking to take the single one and hug the inside. Just some different lines that take you through that corner equally as fast.
Zelensky has fallen off a good bit. Remember, he was on the inverse grid last place, which was P8, and he's almost back down to there. Got as far up as 4th place, I believe, at one point, and then has fallen back since then. But going by him is Violate and Pico, 2 fast cars from this season, looking to capitalize on a good finish of the race here in the Nürburgring in the finale of the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup Contender Series, trying to walk away with 2 good finishes in Violate and Pico. No changes on the cut line just yet, but I'm thinking we're going to see some soon as Caruso is closing in on the 79 of Bixrud, the 95 of Grabowski, and the 53 of Guvin in front of him.
He gained 0.2 of a second that last lap. Let's see how much he gains on this particular lap as Caruso heads his way across the line. He gains about another 0.3 of a second up to Bixrud. I'm seeing Jack Cedric involved in a battle right now. The positions are changing back there. He's continuing to fight with Brian Lockwood, which means that then Caruso, well, if Cedric loses this position to Lockwood, that means Caruso is the driver that's closest to Oscar Bixrud.
And you can see Jordan Caruso creeping in on the 79 of Oscar Bixrud. The gap currently is about 1.4 seconds. It's been like that for a while. Trading positions is Lockwood and Sedgwick. That is going to change things on the cut line, and you can see the cut line continuing to change as more issues happen. I believe Brian Lockwood might have just gotten into an incident here.
Yeah, he was, and it was with Cedric as well. Cedric did very well to hold on to the car. We might even be able to pick it up on the replay if we decide to show it, but this is all getting a little bit too tense as we've got 4 to go at this stage. You can see at the bottom of the screen as Caruso tries to close in as much as possible up to the back of Bixrud. Caruso knows that he just needs that couple more points to try and secure himself inside of the top 15 to get that qualification into the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup for the 2022 season. He's got to drive the next 4 laps like it's a qualifying session and that his complete season's on the line.
When this pass is made, that
we can't guarantee that, though.
No, we cannot right now at all. But Caruso is closing in, and if he were to make this pass, Connery, the amount of points that would be the difference, 10th place points is 22. 11th place points is 20. So they would make up 2 points. So Caruso would need to get by Bixrud and Grabowski and Guvin to get above that cut line. He has a lot of work to do and not a lot of time to do it as we have 3 laps to go. And the battle for the lead is heating up as well. Look at Julian Soden throwing his hat into the ring here. 3 different teams at the front, all racing for the final feature race win of the season.
Remember that stat line of we've never had a repeat winner so far this season of a main race. Williams is looking to try and upset that trend at the end of this season, given he'll get back-to-back wins because he got the W at Long Beach last time out. But Walters, if he's able to get into P1 here, we would have a season with 6 different winners across 6 different races, which would be absolutely fantastic. But Williams, he's not concerned about keeping the trend here. He just wants to finish off this season on a high. Of course, he's already secure as far as the cut line's concerned. He's going for the overall championship win.
Williams is showing why he is at the front right now. Very, very quick running from the 31 tonight. And Alexander Walters, great run from him as well. That number 16 machine started the night in 3rd place with that inverse grid, finished in 5th in the finished in 6th in the sprint race. So a great starting position he was able to grab and now runs in P2. Don't know if it's going to be enough to catch up to David Williams here, Connery, but you can see him closing in and just about evenly back behind them is Julian Sonin. Dino Lombardi might be able to throw his hat into the ring here, but with 2 to go, looking unlikely as he is 2 seconds back from the 40.
Yeah, this is such a crucial phase of the race now as they head towards the line. As we can see, David Williams very concerned about trying to break the draft as we take 2 to go on the way into turn 1. And well, Walter's still not close enough to make a move for the race lead. Sonnen is just, being the passive third party for the moment, but he won't be afraid to stick his nose in if the situation demands it. Let me tell you that 3 different teams in P1, 2 and 3 here in this one, in the final race of the season. Cedric is still also involved in his little situation back there in P12 as Sipler is now getting close to him as well. So I don't think Cedric can really do anything of his own accord here. It's all dependent. His fate is sort of in the hands of Caruso and Bixrud at the moment.
Battle for the lead, top of your screen. Battle for 4th underneath that between Dino Lombardi, Alessandro Pico. You can throw Quentin Violate and Bobby Zelensky into that one as well as they all will race their way down the straightaway through the Dunlop curve for the top 3. I don't think Volter's going to have anything for Williams here, Connery. He just cannot get close enough to make that move. If he gets aggressive going into turn number 1, he might be able to, but he needs to get a better run down the straightaway so he can be at least to the inside of Williams before they commit to that corner. Because if you're not up alongside the car before you try and commit to that first turn, there's no way you're going to make that pass happen unless you punt the driver in front of you.
It was a sluggish run out of the corner there from Volters as you see the flashing of the lights from Sonen. He has a run of speed up and towards the NGK chicane for the penultimate time in this race. We're going on to the final lap of the season in just a couple of moments' time. Williams has a buffer back to Walters. We've, of course, got ourselves the battle for P4 to be concerned about on the bottom of your screen as well, currently led by Dino Lombardi, but the white flag is showing one more to go, and it's Williams in the driving seat right now. But here comes Julian Sonen looking down the inside of Alexander Walters at 4P2 there. He's not able to get it done, but a big swing through turn number 2 might give him the momentum needed. Still no overlap there for Sonen towards the end of the arena section.
Can Sonen get by, grab that third spot, or grab that second spot away, put Volters down into P3. David Williams loves the battle that he is seeing in his mirror. He has an opportunity to continue to run away at the front of the field right now. The battle at the front is between Volters and Sonen for P2. They work their way through Dunlop. Nobody has anything for David Williams. He needs a perfect couple of corners, however, as they race down to Dunlop.
David Williams has had a stellar last couple of laps here. He continues to try and extend the gap back to Volters as Volters is more concerned about Julian Sonen behind him as they run up to the Michael Schumacher S for the final time here. And, well, Volters has done so well to hold on to that second place right now, but he needs to maintain that position just for another sector so that he can secure himself in that P2. Of course, Julian Sonen, as we'll get ourselves a situation out there on circuit, we'll get to see a replay of what has happened here to the Altus Esports car of Jordan Caruso. Oh, he outbreaks himself out into the gravel on the final lap here. That's so unfortunate for him, but as we go back to the battle for P2, I don't think it's going to happen through NGK. I don't think it's going to happen into the final corner as David Williams becomes your first repeat winner in the final race of the season here in the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup Contender Series. Williams takes the win with Volters in second and Sonen in third as we look back, as we get ourselves the 79 of Oscar Bixrud. It was touch and go for a couple of moments there, but he is your final driver to qualify into the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup for next season. Someone tell that guy, because he looks way too worried for us. There we go. He might have just gotten the news from his team. A big sigh of relief for Oscar. He can't quite believe it.
He came into this race 6 points below the cut line, Connery. Through the sprint, through the feature, he ends up 4 points good to the cut line. Barely makes it in, but what a move for Oscar Bixrud. He is into the Super Cup in 2022.
We can get to your full list in the points in just a couple of moments, but there's David Williams just soaking it all in. He is a double feature race winner here in the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup Contender Series. Of course, nothing is official at the moment. This does have to go through post-race review by the stewards, but as it stands, David Williams, of course, wins with Alexander Volters in P2. Julian Sonen in P3, Dino Lombardi P4, Alessandro Pico in P5, Quintin Violate in P6, Zelensky 7 with Guven in 8th, Grabowski in 9th, and Bixrud. A top 10 finish is just about enough to get him into the Super Cup season. Jack Cedric, of course, narrowly misses out. He's in P11 with Matty Sipler in P12. Got to start in 13th with Christiansen in 14th. Josh Thompson 15th. Keitet in 16th. Lockwood in 17th. Caruso with a last lap problem down in P18. Elvis Rankin in P19 with Moreno Sricha in P20. And that is going to be it. Peter Berryman did not start that final event in the feature race. But Joshua, as we are just about to head ourselves in towards the Bose post-race show here, Josh, that couldn't really have gotten all that much more tense.
What a way to round out the Contender Series season. an intense start. We were watching the cut line throughout the middle of the feature. And as we ran our way through the end of that feature, so many amazing battles at the front, in the midfield. We kept watching that cut line, and in the end, Oscar Bixford ends up on top. What a run for the 79, and what a run for David Williams as well. First driver this season to get 2 wins in a feature, and he does it 2 in a row at 2 very different racetracks, Long Beach and the Nürburgring.
Yeah, you couldn't get more different. That just shows how adaptable and very, very confident a driver David Williams is. Of course, we'll speak to him in just a couple of moments' time here, but it was a hectic 6 events, of course, 12 races over the course of this season. We do have, of course, provisionally 15 drivers that have been able to work their way in. We'll get you news on that as soon as we have it, but it was a season's worth of effort. It's a short season, but it was absolutely full of action.
Definitely was. I mean, you go back to the first race when we began the campaign, a lot of unknowns, not really knowing who the top dogs would be. I mean, we knew a couple of drivers would shine through, but we didn't know what that battle was going to be like at the cut line. We worked through round 2, through round 3, then through round 4. Things started to become clear. We knew where the battle was going to be for the cut line. Think about Bobby Zelensky at one point being close to underneath the cut line and underneath the cut line at one point, and then fighting his way back above the cut line to be more than 50 points to the good by the end of the feature race here at the Nürburgring. What a run for Zelensky. And we saw a lot of drivers come into this race. Oscar Bixford is one of them, underneath that cut line, running above the cut line. Jordan Caruso came in a healthy amount of points below that cut line and was only 4 points under before he ended up with that off track at the Dunlop curve that ended up putting him down into P18. But what a run for every driver in this season. It was an amazing 6 weeks, and we're ready to talk with the feature race winner. It is David Williams. He joins us here in the broadcast booth now. David, your second feature race win of the season, and you do it back to back. What's the feeling like right now at VRS going to SimSport?
Yeah, pretty good. Obviously very happy with that. I mean, going into this weekend, nothing really was of real consequence for me. I was safely qualified for PESC, but still, it would have been nice to win the championship. I was leading by a small margin heading into this round, so to have gotten a second race win in the series, as you say, back to back, I couldn't be happier.
And what does this say for your speed going into the Super Cup? Because we've seen before VRS going to SimSport very strong in the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup. Does this really go as a statement for you and the team that you are coming for that championship in 2022?
Sure. I mean, it definitely looks good, doesn't it? For me, at least, the past couple of PESC seasons have not been very good. But as a team, we've always really delivered. So I'll be very happy to rejoin the others, and I'm sure we will be pushing hard to get a championship once again. Whether it's I feel like it's a bit of a long shot with me, but yeah, I think we got a good chance with someone at least.
Great job on the back-to-back feature race wins, David, and congratulations on your win here today from the Nürburgring.
Thanks very much, Josh.
Great to hear from David Williams, Connery, an amazing run for him tonight here. And we will continue with Bo's post-race show, but what a run for David Williams, the only driver this season to win multiple feature races. And he does it in the last 2 races of the season in 2 very, very difficult racetracks as well. 2 different racetracks to note as well there, with Long Beach being a street circuit, Nürburgring being the Grand Prix layout. Both very difficult, but both completely different. We have Alexander Volters now joining us here in the broadcast booth. And Alexander, it was a good run for you today. How was that car feeling out there on the racetrack in the Nürburgring?
The car felt actually great. I was struggling towards the end, but the car felt amazing throughout the weekend.
Well, with your finish, you are safe and into the Super Cup. Of course, unofficially, waiting on the official results from Porsche as well. But knowing that you're safe, is this giving you a boost of confidence into the Super Cup? And what is your goal going into your next season of the Super Cup in 2022?
My goal is to actually finish in the top 20, of course. Last year I couldn't make it, sadly, but I'll try my best this year and see if we can.
Great to hear from you, Alexander, and congratulations on your second place finish here from the virtual Nürburgring.
Thank you.
And Connery, what a run for Volters as well. We saw him make a late run there and almost had a run at David Williams, but unfortunately wasn't able to do it in the end.
Yeah, I mean, it was touch and go there. Of course, it seemed like Volters did have the better, the best end of the stick in terms of pace when it came to the middle of the event. But maybe because of that, he simply did not have the tire performance coming into the back end of the race to be able to challenge David Williams, which is why he had to be more concerned about Julian Sonnen behind him than he was about Williams ahead of him. But Joshua, I've certainly very much enjoyed this season, and like I said, it's been 6 weeks back to back racing, and it's been pretty crazy up and down the field. Of course, we had our fair share of contests, but we've also had our fair share of great racecraft as well in and amongst the drivers. But now heading into the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup season in February. That's when that season will start. And of course, we have one of the talent members, one of the commentators from the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup with us, Mr. Paul Smith. How was that, Paul, watching that race from the sidelines?
I mean, that was drama-filled, wasn't it? You didn't know where to look in that. Yeah, we only had 21 cars on the grid for the first sprint race, but my goodness, what a show that they put on for us here today. I mean, that was a thrill ride all the way from the drop of the green flag in the sprint race to the checkered flag in the feature race there. And I mean, talk about drama in terms of the drop, of where you get there to see whether you get qualification for the championship. The guys behind the scenes are working on that. They're going to try and give us the unofficial points, because of course any penalties would be reviewed afterwards, of course. So it'll give us an idea as to who has got themselves into the 2022. Good grief, time's flying by. 2022 Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup. But I tell you what, it was different working behind the scenes rather than having to talk about that. But yeah, I've got a couple of capable colleagues here to talk us through that. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed that.
It seemed like forever ago when we first started doing the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup in 2019. I believe that was.
Yeah.
It's absolutely crazy. We had, of course, the big announcement at the end of 2018 at the live event in Leipzig with the Porsche sponsors and the drivers also being there for that as well. We didn't really think it would turn out to be as successful. Well, we had very more moderate expectations compared to what the series turned into, and of course, I'm here very much for every step of the way, and it's been absolutely fantastic. Joshua, of course, you've been involved in things in slightly more recent times than both me and Paul is at the moment, and of course, how's your experience been, at least of this Contender series, and what are your expectations heading into the Super Cup?
This Contender series was exciting from top to bottom. I mean, we usually see that with the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup. There's always exciting moments, but it seemed like in each and every round, we had that one or two moments that we said, wow, how did that happen? We were sitting back and wondering, man, that was an intense moment. We saw that for pretty much every round of this campaign. I'm expecting a little bit of the same in the Super Cup. Obviously, we're adding in the drivers who qualified in from the last Super Cup, finished in that top 20, but I would not be shocked if we see a handful of these 15 that make it out of the Contender series having a run at the championship of the Super Cup. So we have some really talented drivers that are going to give the likes of the Super Cup guys a run for their money next year.
Yeah, of course, you've got the likes of Sebastian Job, you've got Joshua Rogers as well, our two-time champion in that series. Well, Joshua thinks that there's some drivers from this series that could potentially challenge them, but do you, Paul?
Well, I mean, you just have to look back to last season's Contender series with the qualification for the championship. You saw someone like Charlie Collins just burst on the scene, really, didn't he? He came alive in that qualification process. And, of course, that was a lot more intense because as soon as that qualification process finished, it was only a couple of weeks, and then they were into the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup. He found himself in a very, very capable team in Contender Simsport. So you never know. You never write anyone out of this. Of course, I think what we saw here today is the maturity and the experience of David Williams, knowing what he had to do throughout this Contender series to get himself qualified automatically. And today was just basically, let's have some fun. Let's see what I can do out there. And Bobby Zelensky as well. Mm-hmm. Again, multiple world championships that he's been involved in terms of the oval, dirt road, and here on the road side of things as well. So he's got a lot of experience in that. But when you get into the Super Cup, things just step up another level. You have got such a level of intensity and competition in that Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup that just, as much as this is intense, get 35 of these drivers out there on track, and it's you don't know where to look.
I mean, we're close within a couple of tenths of a second as far as qualifying times are concerned here in this series. It's even closer in the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup because, Josh, you have teams, you have whole organizations in that series that look to try and optimize their qualifying laps as much as possible. And everyone's just trying to get that little one-up on each other by couple of hundredths of a second in qualifying in particular, let alone when it comes to the actual racing, which what makes that series so intense. There's not actually that much difference from, say, a Joshua Rogers and Sebastian Job and maybe a mid-pack runner or back-of-the-pack runner. In terms of lap time, they are incredibly close, but it's just that slight edge, that special talent that's required to finish at the top of the Super Cup.
We haven't talked about it yet here in the Bose post-race show, but brand new car. We're going to the 992 in the Super Cup for 2022. I remember back old school days of going to the McLaren MP430 in the Grand Prix World Championship and Martin Kroenke coming in and dominating in that car. Will we see something similar to that with the Porsches going from the 991 to the 992? Will we see some teams struggle with it? Will we see some teams go up into the top step of the podium for the first time because they like that car? They're better with that car. We're going to have to wait for the first round of the Super Cup to really find that out, but I'm expecting a couple of shifting in the speed charts because of the new car and drivers having to get used to it and teams having to get used to how to set up that car.
Yeah, and of course, it's not just a rebadge of an existing car. There are some fundamental changes to the 992 compared to the 991. The aerodynamics are completely different. You got more power. You got different tires. It's going to be a learning experience for those already existing Super Cup drivers and the drivers that have qualified from this series to get to grips with how to go fast in that 992.
Yeah, I mean, really, with the 992, it's a little bit more forgiving than this car. This car is quite a brutal car in terms of you get your braking ever so slightly wrong and you're locking up tires and you're heading off into the gravel trap, as we saw Jordan Caruso doing that towards the end of that race there. So yeah, it is an unforgiving car. Is this the new one? That little bit of extra downforce. We've got slightly wider front tires as well, and as you say, a bit more power. That just gives you that little bit more security and that little bit more of a blanket there for those drivers to be able to cope with that. Will that mean that actually we see the field get even closer in terms of times? Because last season in the Super Cup, we were getting drivers covered by 1 second for the top 30 in qualifying, for example. So, yeah, you can't get much closer, really, can you?
You can't at all. But if you want your fair share of close racing, then of course you can log on to iRacing.com today. Of course, there are usually new member bonuses that you can utilize just to make your at least initial expense just that bit cheaper. As it's one big community here on iRacing. Even in some splits, you see some of the same names. You can really develop some good friendships potentially as well. Some good teammates to run in long endurance racing special events like the 24 Hours of Daytona, the Petit Le Mans, which is a more recent race that we had run. So certainly worth getting yourself involved here in iRacing. But of course, Joshua, as we're waiting for those points to be finalized at the moment, so we can get a clear picture of who are the 15 that head their way through into the Super Cup, of course, pending then post-race review by the race administrators. How's the vibe going into the Super Cup? Because, of course, it's not too long now. We've got about, a handful of months to be able to get into that season, starting in February, of course. It's a bit more time to prepare than they had last season, though. So I guess that's a benefit.
Yeah, and they'll have time with the 992. It's already in the sim. It's not a new car that we're waiting to come out. They can already start running with it, and we've been running it in league competitions for a couple of months now, and we're finishing up our league season there, and the 992 is providing some amazing racing. So we're already seeing a couple of teams starting to develop those setups, starting to really work them in. We're seeing a couple of the drivers who are starting to shine through, having some experience with that 992, but ultimately, when we go into the Super Cup, things are going to completely change, and we're going to see things be completely different than they were over the off season. I'm expecting a lot of the same, and I'm expecting a bit of aggression from a lot of the drivers because brand new car, they don't really know what it's going to do when they get into a pack of 30 racing down into turn number 1 for the first time during the sprint race. They need to make sure that their cars work to be aggressive. With the fatter tires, they might work a little bit better for that aggression, but ultimately, we're going to have to wait and find out in the Super Cup.
Yeah, it won't be too long at all. Of course, Paul, you'll be sticking around for the Super Cup as well. But of course, new season on the horizon. Of course, it's a complete reset as far as all the drivers are concerned. So, the momentum heading into that final round, or heading out of that final round, in fact, heading out of that first round, I will get my words in the right order at some point. But heading out of that first round is going to be so crucial. So the preparation must be incredibly intense for that first round, and who knows what new iRacing builds in the meantime will throw, what spanners those will throw into the works with regards to changing the handling before the season actually starts.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's also, you look at some of those drivers, we've never had a repeat champion in the Porsche Hardcore Esports Super Cup. Will Josh Rogers be able to be the first person to do that next season? Will Sebastian Job be able to get over the disappointment of not being able to retain his championship last season, to be able to put on a really good showing this coming season as well? And who else? Like I said, Charlie Collins, he could be the young pretender to the throne there at in the Commander team. So he could potentially throw a spanner amongst the works. Look at all the Apex Racing drivers as well, Apex Racing UK drivers that are currently out there in this championship as well. One of them could get in there and really get involved in fighting for that championship. So there's a number of drivers out there that could potentially get an opportunity to get a go ahead. All it takes is get a nice good start to the season, some really good strong rounds in the first 3 rounds of the championship. That sets you up really well in terms of confidence and in terms of points to then take that on throughout the rest of the championship.
Of course, we have Maximilian Bernecker from Porsche 24, driven by Redline, coming off a high in winning the entire season of the Carrera Cup Deutschlands, the esports version here on iRacing as well. So he's looking pretty good heading into that season. Of course, he's had a couple of lackluster performances over the course of not only last year in the Super Cup, but even you could potentially say the year before it as well. So he's looking to try and get himself back on track. Perhaps one of the more famous German sim racers, of course, here in esports competition. But Joshua, we can all just conjecture all that we want here. Good couple of months before the season, the situation isn't exactly very clear whatsoever. But I'm certainly very hyped for what 2022 has to offer as far as the top level of road racing here on iRacing. It seems like it gets crazy and crazy about the year.
It does. When you go back to 2019, had a good run there. We go through to 2020, an amazing run to the championship. 2021, even more exciting than the year past. And 2022, who knows what is going to happen in next year. And let's take a look at a couple of highlights from tonight's event here from virtual Nürburgring.
It was a little chaotic on both race starts here today. Of course, Jack Sedgwick narrowly missing out on a transfer spot. We've got Sam Keitert probably having the worst day out of those drivers that were on the cut line. Of course, he was only just getting himself into the series coming into this one, but of course, starting P15 in the sprint race means that he gets involved in all the carnage in the mid-pack that you just saw there. Before we pulled up, these are our provisional points. This is pending post-race review here, these are the 15 drivers that have booked themselves a slot in the Super Cup for next season, at least right now. So it's David Williams, Kenton Violatti, Julian Sonnen, Alessandro Pico, Peter Berryman as the top 5. We've got Alexander Volters getting himself a slot, Dino Lombardi, Moreno Saricha, Josh Thompson, Gianni Vecchio getting himself in there with a 10th place in the standings. Bobby Zelensky gets himself in. Matty Sipler is in. Webster is in. Lockwood is in. And Bixrud, the last driver in by 2 points, back to Cedric, who narrowly misses out. Guven misses out. Kaitet misses out. Krusu misses out. And same with Grabowski as well. So those are your top 15 booking themselves a slot in the 2022 Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup season. The Contender Series is over here for 2021, but we look forward to February, where we'll get the main Super Cup season started. I've been Connery Maddock. I've been joined by Joshua Lee for this season, with special guest appearances from the one, the only Mr. Paul Smith. But we'll have to say goodbye and see you in February.